All right. Good morning, everybody. It is May 8th, 2023, and I am Road to Recovery. And purpose of this Monday morning chat is to offer anybody the opportunity, if they wish to be able to discuss with me about porn addiction or porn addiction recovery. This morning, I had been thinking about over the weekend because I constantly meet people who are in an addiction space, and there's always a certain percentage of, I would not just say this is relegated to behavioral addictions. I would say just addictions in general. When you start meeting a lot of addicts, especially with men, you start to discover that there is a personality defect that's common amongst many, and I like to label it the man child. And what I wanted to do this morning is kind of read this article that was produced by Very Well Minded. It's written by Marini Furman, who is a licensed social worker, and it's also co-written by Carl Snyder, who is a medical doctor. I'm going to read this, and I think there's so much here that kind of applies to the sort of personality that I work with, and some personality traits that, to be honest with you, that I owned. So here we go. What is a man child? Also known as a Peter Pan syndrome. A man who exhibits persistent patterns of emotionally immature responses and behavior is sometimes referred to as a man child. People married to these individuals might complain about having an immature husband who does not have or does not behave like an adult in their relationship. During the 1980s, this phenomenon was dubbed the Peter Pan syndrome. The term was popularized by a psychiatrist named Dan Kiley, who published a book in 1983 called The Peter Pan Syndrome: Men Who Have Never Grown Up. While it provided a way to organize and discuss the characteristics and behaviors of people who were emotionally mature, Peter Pan syndrome is not an official psychiatric diagnosis. It does not appear in the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual for Mental Disorders and is not recognized by the World Health Organization. Like the character of Peter Pan, you might know a person who just refuses to grow up. It could be a friend, a coworker, or even your spouse. While the term is often applied to men, women are capable of exhibiting the same pattern or behavior. The man child label. It's important to understand what you really mean when you describe somebody as being a male child, accuse them of being a mature husband, or describe them as having Peter Pan syndrome. First, are you frustrated by what you have perceived as a lack of emotional, social, or mental development? Do you feel certain attributes that initially attract you to your partner and then you used to love, such as a laid back and fun loving personality, are now causing difficulties in your relationship? Do you sometimes feel like you're talking to a teenager rather than a grown up when you are attempting to engage them in a discussion? Is their behavior immature, irresponsible, or unreliable? Is the response to their behavior Yeah, in response to their behavior, do you feel that you have to work extra hard to compensate or to cover up for them? Why the label is harmful. No one should be reduced to labels, especially hurting or name calling. When you're feeling frustrated by your partner's or spouse's behavior, hurtful phrases might slip out when you're expressing or exasperating to a confident. For one, it's vague and might be interpreted by your partner in a way that other than you intended. It could also make your partner feel very angry or hurt. They might get defensive or shut down in the conversation completely. If you want to have a talk with your partner about the behavior and how you feel it is affecting your relationship, you will need to be direct. You need to give more concrete examples rather than vague generalizations. Signs of an immature partner, and I'm sorry that this article is written in the context of relationships, but everything that is said here is so true. So I'm going to continue reading it, but I want you to just try to extract the nuggets where you can. Signs of an immature partner. There are a variety of signs associated with a person who is described as a man child or an immature husband. You might recognize common immature behaviors in your male partner, but these behaviors are not specific to men. The signs can appear in an adult who has not reached a certain level of emotional maturity. They lack boundaries with their parents. People who are emotionally immature sometimes have intense or dysfunctional relationships with their parents. For men, this can include how they relate to their mothers. The unhealthy dynamic usually starts in childhood and is sometimes referred to as an enmeshment. When a man is enmeshed with his mother, he might continue to rely on her to meet his emotional, social, or practical or financial needs, even when he is in a partnered adult relationship. They have not had mature relationships. If you have discussed prior relationships with your partner, you may have noticed that they tried to speak poorly of people who have been in a relationship with, or in friendships or romantic or sexual partnerships. Instead of taking responsibility for their actions or behaviors that might have caused problems or ended up with previous relationships, a person who is immature is more likely to blame others. Their friends are immature. An immature person might prefer to spend time with others who lack emotional maturity, as these individuals are less likely to question, criticize, or challenge their behavior. You might find that you dislike many of your partner's friends because of how they behave. You might even consider these friends to be a bad influence or worry that you are stroking your partner's immature behavior. When you and your partner are socializing with other adults, such as going out with friends, having a family gathering, or attending a work function, their behavior might embarrass you or even anger you. You might feel the need to explain or apologize for their misbehavior. They can't keep a job. It's not uncommon for people who are immature emotionally to struggle with getting or holding down a job. They might have been fired or from a string of jobs, or from poor work performance, absenteeism, interpersonal problems with coworkers or boss, substitute use, or even behaviors like stealing. If a person has enabling parents, family, or friends who support them financially well into adulthood, they might be able to continue to avoid work. They lack healthy ways to cope with stress. People who are immature often don't have healthy ways to cope with stress. They might use certain activities or avoid feelings, responsibilities, or anything else that causes them stress. An emotionally mature person might take up stress relieving hobbies, confide in a friend over coffee, work with a therapist, or use exercise to relieve stress. Someone who is immature might develop an addiction to an activity that promotes avoidance or escapism, such as video games, and I noted in Twitter, or porn. Their relationship with substances is unhealthy. Anyone can develop an unhealthy relationship with alcohol or substances or porn, but emotional immaturity might play a role in substance misuse and addiction for some people. An immature husband or man child might even try to justify their irresponsible behavior, for example, by emailing you a question, research study, or safety of benefits, or talking about an illicit drug after you express concern. When they are unable to justify or back up their behavior when you call them out on it, an immature person might attack you. For example, if you express concern about a partner's binge drinking or porn, you might accuse them of being uptight or being unable to relax or have fun. So that right there encapsulates a lot. I mean, just that attribute alone is the type of thing I see on a regular basis inside of like support and recovery rooms. But it's something I also see with people who I knew are man children in my own life. And when you see that behavior, you realize that that person has a stunted growth cycle, like they did not mature correctly, and all the attributes that you would associate with a normal adult is now